Should new players be watching dungeon guides in Final Fantasy XIV? What is it there, guys? This is Cobb. Welcome to a video having a chat about something that I brought up in a video just a little while back, and I really fucking put my foot in it. I kicked a hornet's nest. I didn't realize that the FF14 community would be so divided about whether or not people should be expected to watch dungeon guides. So there was a hell of a lot of discussion in the comments in that video. I thought it would be a good idea to do a video talking about the topic exactly, and I'm hyped to read your guys' comments on this one. I'm of the opinion, at least personally, I don't want to feel like the goddamn squeaky wheel in the group. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be that one fucking guy who doesn't know the goddamn strats, and you get that group that's kind of trying to rush through everything, and you're just trying to keep up, and then you fucking wipe the group, and it's a disaster, and you're screwing things up, and it's all your fault. And while the Final Fantasy XIV community is obviously extremely generous, extremely patient, it's not one of those things that you're very well acquainted with when you first start playing the game, and if you're coming from a game like WoW, you might not be used to such a patient goddamn community, you know? So it's one of those things where, yeah, I started off being very much of the opinion that watching dungeon guides, if you find that it enhances your enjoyment of the game and alleviates some of that kind of multiplayer anxiety, then some of that duty finder anxiety, if you like, then by all means, go ahead and do it. On that video from a few days back, actually, we got a comment dropped in from Hitodama? Hitodama saying, if you feel comfortable enough going in blind, then go ahead. There should be no expectation that you will know what you're doing. Obviously, especially if you're a goddamn sprout. I, however, can hardly bring myself to join a dungeon group, even if I know it like the back of my hand. So this guy's like an extreme variation of me, you know what I'm saying? Anxiety from uncertainty is going to make that even worse, so I'd much rather feel at least a bit confident that I'm not being a total moron if I can help it. Now, again, this is a much more extreme version of my take on things, obviously. I ain't that goddamn anxious about queuing up. You know, I've actually started queuing up blind a little bit now going into heavensward. Maybe Hitodama will show up in the comments of this video and just clarify things for me, but I definitely get the sense that this is someone who is coming from World of Warcraft and is trying out Final Fantasy, you know? And again, all of this anxiety about, oh, what if I let people down and stuff, it's obviously very unfounded in the Final Fantasy XIV community, and it's something that, myself included, you know, everybody should try to kind of get over, because going in blind is much more fun. But it's hard to get over, man. It's hard to get over the habit building, you know, of being a WoW player for a long time, at least, you know, speaking about myself, where you're just expected to know everything, especially if it's old content. Like, there's no fucking excuse. You gotta know what you're doing, man. And it's partially because WoW is so tied into player power level. But more on that in just a sec. We're getting another comment in from SilentThunder saying, I'm similar. I'm going to go into some comments from the opposite point of view again in just a sec, because they're really interesting. But SilentThunder says, I'm similar. I'm an anxious player coming in from the WoW climate. You know what I'm saying? And I just like that extra little bit of preparedness. I respect those that run a dungeon for the first time blind, but I get so worried about letting down the group that I can't focus enough to just have fun on a blind run. Yeah, man, a lot of people talk about, just pausing there for a second, a lot of people talk about, oh, it's more fun to run blind. Sometimes it's more fun to go in knowing what to expect mechanically, knowing what's expected of you and your role, especially if you're like a tank or something. Some people find it more enjoyable to have at least a vague idea of what's coming, so that they're not going to let the group down, and then they can really take in the dungeon a lot more. A lot of people hear, oh, what do you mean you're checking out dungeon guides before you queue? Why would you do that? You know, you're spoiling things. But the thing is, you can just look up text-based dungeon guides, you know? So at least you're not getting spoiled for the music and the visuals and what these mechanics actually look like on screen and stuff. And there's ways that you can like soft spoil yourself on mechanics without mega giga ultra spoiling everything. That's just a quick aside. Oh, then SilentThunder just wraps up by saying he likes to prep with a video, knowing that he can take a look at basically and enjoy the dungeon in the process. Smiley face. More power to you, SilentThunder, if that's what you enjoy doing. Now, again, this is a point of view that I'm gradually moving away from over time. I started out watching dungeon guides for everything all the way through A Realm Reborn, because I kept thinking, oh, okay, that last dungeon was really easy, but what if this next one is where things get hard, you know? What if suddenly things get difficult? Then I'd look up a guide for the next one and I'd be like, okay, this one seems kind of simple as well, but what if the next one is really hard, you know? So I'd watch another fucking dungeon guide. And it wasn't until, you know, really the very end of A Realm Reborn that I thought, you know what, screw this. We're just gonna fucking go in blind. and see what's up, you know? And it resulted in some wipes and stuff, especially in very sprout-heavy groups. That's another thing as well. There's so many new players playing the game right now that it's really kind of cool to go in blind, especially if you end up with a full group of sprouts, because then no one knows what the fuck's going on, and it's almost like it's brand new content for the whole group, you know? Which is really, really cool. But right now myself, I'm very much in a middle ground. For some trials and some dungeons, if they seem like they're going to be rough, I'll look up a quick text-based guide just to identify any key mechanics that I really should know. And sometimes, especially if it's like a main story quest dungeon or something, I'm like, how hard can it be? You know what I'm saying? Let's just go in there blind and see what's up. So that's where I'm at right now. We've got another comment in on the flip side from Mr. Fabulous. The reasons for going in blind is actually manifold, he says. Number 1, it teaches you to be humble, meaning you learn to say at the start of the dungeon, "Hey guys, I'm new here. May I ask for stuff to be explained on the go?" Question mark. What makes the community amazing is because they are mostly willing to slow down and help you smell the roses. That is big truth. That is extremely true. I don't think I've actually had a single, to this day, not even one negative experience yet with any group ever. Any trials, any dungeons. Even when I queued up like an idiot, the first time I actually queued something blind was the Ballad's Ultima's Bane, you know, the ballad thingy, and that was a complete fucking disaster. I'm like, oh my god, like this was the first time I queued up blind, you know, and it was actually something that I shouldn't have even been using the dungeon finder to queue for, but being a moron, I didn't fucking know any better, you know, so we queued up for that shit. I had no idea what was going on. We wiped like 6 times, but whatever, man, it was incredible. Even then, the point is, the group was extremely patient and people actually took the time to explain stuff, and it was really, really cool. It was really, really cool to eventually get that thing down, you know? Next little tidbit that Sophie actually just chimed in with real quick as well is a kind of pattern that we spotted, in that usually it's tanks that like to do the explaining. If there's new players in the group, it tends to be one of the tanks, or like the off tank or something, that will kind of hit pause before we pull a boss and just let people know what the fuck to do, especially again if the sprouts in the group. So maybe that's a thing as well. If you're planning on playing the tank role, maybe it's just not a great idea to queue up blind as much as it is DPS. I don't know, man. I don't want to fucking give people too many concrete pointers. It effectively comes down to what you find the most fun, and that's really that. But anyways, Mr. Fabulous does go on. Number 2, first experiences can never come back. This is a big one, I think. Spoiling a dungeon's mechanics ahead of time will waste that first time feeling and destroy the magic a little bit. Now, this is true. This is a big point, man. Especially if you're watching video-based guides, I think that this is something that you're going to experience pretty early on, where it's just kind of not as hype to queue up for a dungeon when you've already seen exactly what the boss looks like, exactly what all of the abilities look like. Maybe you even like heard the music and stuff, which is a big fucking spoiler, especially for trials, you know? So I definitely think this is true. Obviously, text-based guides, if you just want a quick breakdown of the mechanics in written form, those kind of lean into this a little bit less. Obviously, you're still kind of foregoing the puzzle of figuring things out as the boss unfolds, which is obviously part of the excitement. So it's still a soft spoiler, but even still, and it's got to be said, of all of the trials and all of the bosses and stuff that I've done so far, it was the Ballad of the Ultima's Bane, or whatever the fuck you call that goddamn duty. That was the most epic and most hype and most memorable for me, because I accidentally queued it blind, and I really fucking shouldn't have, honestly, because I didn't realize just how tough that content was. And I queued it in Duty Finder, and lots of mistakes happened, but yeah, because I went in not knowing what the fuck to expect, it did make it extremely goddamn hype, so I'll give you that one, Mr. Fabulous. And it was a big step, by the way, for me to actually queuing more content blind after that. I was like, well, people are saying this was really hard content, this Ultima's Bane, and I did that, so what the hell else is the worst that can happen, you know? Let's just queue some more stuff blind and see what goes down, you know? And point number 3, Mr. Fabulous, is it trains you to be observant, especially if you want to eventually try raiding. I think that's a bit of a soft point. I think that most people who are playing FF and reach endgame at FF in this point probably have played an MMO before, just because of how aging the MMO population is. Kids these days tend not to fucking jump into MMOs. Sophie just mentioned WoW's like dying, so it's like a lot of players coming into the game now are already WoW refugees, which is, yeah, obviously very, very PvE heavy. And next comment came in from Harris Strait. Mr. Harris says, the game acknowledges to the party if someone is new. So if they get mad at you for not knowing what to do in a dungeon, they only have themselves to blame for not stopping and explaining at least a little bit. Big true. I didn't actually realize this until like the end of Realm Reborn, but if you join the party for like a dungeon or whatever, it will actually say in like the bottom left, your little chat, bottom left little chat window, you know, that, you know, a player is progressing through this content for the first time. And yeah, I mean, it's just automatic. The group knows right off the bat that at least one player, and it's probably going to be the fucking Sprout, let's be honest, has not experienced that content yet. That's a good point, man, and I like that Square introduced that automatically. The next comment rolled in, this one's much more recent, from Mr. Thormac, and he says, I do not understand bastards that refuse to watch guides, then go into these complex dungeons and wipe the group over and over again, because they have no clue what they are doing. Okay, so this one's fucking interesting because I feel like this guy is Mr. Thormac. You're probably talking about more advanced content in this comment, right? You're probably talking about extreme content. In which case, what you're saying is true. From what I understand, apparently people are expected to know what the hell they're doing when they actually queue up for more extreme content and stuff like that. However, you should be aware, Mr. Thormac, that if a new player reads this comment, they're going to think, oh my god, I'm going to be destroyed if I join a dungeon or a trial without looking up a guide, because if the group is full of Thormacs, I'm going to get fucking kicked. So maybe that's not a good idea, man, to be dropping comments like this, you know what I'm saying? On the flip side to this comment as well, by the way, many a times I had this kind of attitude where I was like, oh man, what if there's Thormacs everywhere, you know? And I join a group and there's fucking 3 other Thormacs and I'm fucking everything up and they hate me, you know? Oh, it's gonna be horrible. So I look up a dungeon guide and then I'd immediately regret looking up the dungeon guide. Well, not because anything was particularly spoiled, not really, but because it's like, oh wow, it's another extremely easy dungeon then, you know? Especially in A Realm Reborn, it's like, you really don't have to watch any guides for any content in A Realm Reborn, at least up until you're doing, like, yeah, the Ultima's Bane, you know? Also maybe Aurum Vale. Aurum Vale, that's a good one. What I'd actually like, and I tell you what, man, I'd really appreciate this, if someone could put together a list of dungeons and trials where there's like a mechanic that you really have to fucking know. Because a lot of the times I would look up a dungeon guide, then like I said, I'd regret it because I was like, wow, this dungeon's really simple. I wish I'd got into this blind, you know? And then like I mentioned earlier, the next dungeon becomes available, or the next trial becomes available, and then all over again I'd be like, oh, maybe this is the one that's going to get really hard, you know? I should look up a guide for this one. For sure this time. And I'd look it up. Don't stand in AoE. It's like... The next comment comes in from Mr. Woodwinds Rock, and he says, I watch video guides, and I will always watch video guides, Ruffalo, especially after the World of Darkness raid. Oh, bless your soul, my friend. The World of Darkness raid, man. Oh, dude. Yeah, me and Sophie went into that blind as well, and thankfully, again, we had a fantastic off-tank who took the time before every boss to explain to us idiots what the fuck we had to do, climbing in fucking Cerberus's stomachs and shit, and fucking... Okay, when the ground turns this colour, stand there. When it stands there, you gotta alternate between the two, and then there's fucking beams coming. Don't get hit by the beams. It's like, okay. And then everyone's just wiping. It was a fucking disaster, man. But you know what? It was fun. I was told by people to go into the Crystal Tower Raid series blind, and that everything will be fine. Oh, World of Darkness was not fine. We kept on wiping on the first boss alone, and the people in the group were impatient and rude. Oh man, there was Thormacs everywhere is what you're telling me. One time someone even did a laugh emoticon at me, while another said, these are basic mechanics everyone should know by now. Woodwinds. I'm so sorry I had that terrible experience, man. Like I said, I haven't had a single bad experience yet with, like, impatient or, like, rude groups and stuff like that. It's also entirely possible that, I mean, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe you were playing the game, like, way before the huge surge of new players really began, so that when you stepped into World of Darkness, it was very old content, but it was very rare to have new players going through it for the first time, so everyone was just kind of expected to know what to do. And now there's a big surge of new players. It's like there's this huge resurgence in veteran players having to explain things to like the 3 or 4 members of the raid, what the fuck they're supposed to be doing in an encounter, especially like the World of Darkness bosses. Those things are not goddamn simple, man. Those are crazy as hell. So I'm sorry that you had that bad experience, man. I went into that one blind. For the most part, I think I looked up some written mechanics for the first boss, because I heard that one was Chaos. So I looked up some written mechanics for the first boss. Last boss, absolutely fucking blind, and it was chaos, man. So I feel your pain, but it was an incredible experience for me. And that's another thing as well, man. It's like, if you're going to the dungeon blind, I think that just the variance of experience you can get becomes much, much wider. Like, if you know the mechanics, you're going to get an average flatline experience. You know what you're getting, you know? You can take in the sights, you can enjoy the music, whatever, right? If you go in blind, it's either going to really, really suck, or it's going to be like the greatest, most ascending experience of your life. You know what I'm saying? So that's something to bear in mind as well. And that's really depending on the attitude and the atmosphere of your group, you know, which you really can't control that much. So it's kind of out of your hands, but it's definitely much more of a roll of the dice. And some people just prefer to know what's coming so they can have that kind of average experience where, yeah, they spoil the mechanics a little bit, but at least they can take in the sights. And then you have those people who like to go in blind just for the chaos of it, you know. They're chasing that high, that new experience, and that's what they enjoy doing, man. So, hey, man, Woodwinds, if you enjoy checking out some guides and just getting that standard staple solid experience when you're playing, man, then more power to you, dude. Man, I'm red in the face because it's 37 degrees. We had another comment roll in from Mr. or Mrs. Amber saying, watch the dungeon guides. As a new player to this game, please watch the guides. I've no tears left to weep when you get one shot by a mechanic that, without watching a guide, there is no way you could figure it out with any sort of reasonable deduction. Just watch the guides, please. Now, again, I kind of feel like, just to add some context to this comment, I feel like maybe minus Keeper of the Lake and Aurum Vale and Ultima's Bane, I feel like this comment really doesn't apply to those. So it's like everything in A Realm Reborn, minus those three that I just mentioned, can really be cleared very, very easily without a guide. And I wasted a lot of time myself watching guides and researching these dungeons and these duties before queuing them up myself, and I just thought, man, what the hell am I doing? This content's really, really easy right now. I've also found something of a similar thing to be true as well in the heavensward dungeons too, but that is just me. So Amber, some advice to you. If you get a sprout in the group and you see that little message down in the bottom left of your chat saying that this is the first time a new player's queued up the dungeon, maybe just take the time to explain some stuff, man. Especially the key kind of one-shot mechanics that aren't very intuitive to new players in the group. You'd go a long way, and you would shed far fewer tears. And the last comment rolls in from Mr. Pensive. And he says, I agree. I watched the guide for Aurum Vale, which I'm glad I did, because there's a clear your stacks mechanic, and Keeper of the Lake. Oh, you actually mentioned Keeper of the Lake too, which is a step up from the dungeons to that point. But after that, I stopped. And it's been much more fun going in blind. So I actually kept Mr. Pensive's comment right until the end, because I feel like my experiences much more align with yours. I started going in a blind earlier than you. I actually went in blind into Keeper of the Lake and enjoyed that a lot. Just learning what the fuck to do with a full team of sprouts on the last boss was extremely fun. It was awesome. But yeah, I think our experiences quite align. Towards the end of A Realm Reborn, that's when I started going in blind quite a bit more. The community is very accepting and tolerant of mistakes, and going in blind simply makes for a much better experience in my opinion. If someone is nervous not watching guides, then watch them. But a simple, first time here, anything I need to know, is plenty. And most of the time the mechanics in FF14 are very intuitive, otherwise people will generally say something if you said that ahead of time. Remember, the point, ladies and gentlemen, is to have fun. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. What a beautiful little comment to go ahead and wrap with this video, man. Thanks for that very, very much, man, Pensive. The TLDR is, just do whatever the hell brings you the most joy while playing this game. That's the beauty of FF14, man. Look, whichever fucking way you want to play the game, unless you're like shitting on and trolling on and ripping on and fucking scamming other players or some shit, then any way that you want to play this game is pretty much fucking acceptable, which is, yeah, something of a mind blow to me, you know, again, being someone who played WoW for the longest time, and this being the first other MMO that I've really had strong intentions about getting to max level 2 and really exploring in depth. Just do whatever hell you enjoy the most. I think that I really hit the nail on the head earlier, if I do say so myself, when I was talking about, look, if you want to spoil dungeon mechanics for yourself because you're feeling a little bit anxious, you don't want to let people down, you don't want to have people spend their time explaining mechanics to you, you know, you'd rather not be that squeaky wheel, and you're totally content with just having like a 6 or 7 out of 10 experience where you're not getting that exploration exhilaration from doing a boss blind for the first time. You know exactly what to expect when going into it, you know? So you're kind of capped out at how much you can enjoy the boss. By all means, if that's more comfortable for you and that's what you want to do, then go ahead and fucking do that, man. It's really that simple. If you enjoy going in blind, on the flip side, you know, and you're totally happy with having that kind of 1 in 30, 1 in 40 chance, you had that small chance of things going really, really badly and having a group, like, your experience, like, drops down to here, because you've got a group that's very impatient and rude, like we've heard about, you know, these things do happen, even in a community as pristine as FF14's, you know, there are going to be dick bags, and that's just the way it is. You also have the chance to have that 10 out of 10 experience, man, where Jesus, man, you're soaking in the boss, you're learning the mechanics as you go, you're fighting for your life, for your very survival, as all of these mechanics come rolling in that you have no idea what the fuck to do with, and you're just kind of trying to intuit your way through the encounter. You get those highs and those lows, man, if you're going blind. And some people prefer that, man. Some people are just high rollers like that, you know? Or you can do what I'm doing, which is a little bit of a middle ground. About 1 in 3 dungeons and trials, mostly the trials, I like to go in blind. But some stuff, I will just quickly look up a quick text-based guide, and I'll just kind of skim read it, and if a mechanic seems scary, okay, this will wipe the raid, this will result in insta-wipe, okay, what's that mechanic? Hone in on that one, you know, learn that one real quick, and then it's like, okay, just commit it to memory, close it off, queue up, and let's go, right? That's the way that I'm doing it, so that I'm not getting any visual spoilers, I'm not getting any telegraph spoilers, I'm not hearing the music for the first time ever, you know? I've got the need to know stuff in my head, and then I experience things from there, you know? But what do you think? What's your 2 cents on this? What are your pros and cons for going in blind versus going in prepared? What do you guys think, man? What do you like to do? How long was it from when you started playing and maybe started watching guides in the beginning? How long did it take you? Or maybe what expansion was it for you where you finally said, you know what, man, fuck this, it's time to go in blind and just see what's up, and you started engaging with content like that a lot more? I'd love to hear about that. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to cut this video off here before we ramble on for too long. Cheers for stopping by. Do please have a fantastic day, and I shall catch all of you guys just a tad bit later.